Oh, good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. Happy Friday at the end of a long week. Take 3 steps back. If you had to sum up this moment in our history, what would you call it? Maybe the age of fraud. We're living in a time when the most powerful people in the world masquerade as the least powerful. A time when billionaires pose as helpless victims. Don't criticize Bill Gates. A time when a woman who literally identifies as the Duchess of Sussex from Canoga Park tells Oprah that she's oppressed, and then Oprah nods in empathy because Oprah's oppressed too. In a moment like this one, it's probably not too surprising that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez feels deeply sorry for herself. Ocasio-Cortez was elected to Congress a few years ago at the age of 28. She beat a longtime incumbent in a race that nobody thought she could win. Her previous job, famously, had been waiting tables and tending bar at a taco place in Union Square. Now, people made fun of that, but we haven't. Say what you will about Ocasio-Cortez's views, that is a legitimately impressive achievement. If your daughter did it, you'd be proud, honestly. But Ocasio-Cortez doesn't seem proud. She seems aggrieved. With every passing year, as her fame and power grows, she seems angrier and more brittle. Within a month of arriving in Washington, Ocasio-Cortez had amassed a larger social media presence than any member of Congress in the first month. As of today, she's got 12.6 million Twitter followers. That's nearly twice as many as Nancy Pelosi has, and Pelosi's been doing this for half a century. So Ocasio-Cortez has one of the largest political megaphones on earth. But she wants more than that. She now insists that not only should she be able to speak totally unfiltered to millions of people at once, but that nobody should be allowed to disagree with what she says. In February, her office sent a mass email to supporters asking them to report anyone who criticizes her to the tech monopolies for punishment. Quote, scan your social media to find posts with misleading information, the email read. Use the built-in report feature to flag them for moderators. Well, what is this? It's pretty straightforward, really. Here you have one of the most powerful politicians in America using the most powerful companies in the world to censor her political opponents. That sounds like authoritarianism. And in fact, if it was happening in, say, Ghana, that's exactly what you'd call it. But since it's happening here in 2021, we don't call it that. We don't even notice it. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez isn't a power-mad demagogue. No. She's a vulnerable young woman just trying to protect herself from assault. To disagree with her is to injure her. When the left-wing podcaster Jimmy Dore, whom we're going to speak to in a moment, pushed Ocasio-Cortez to fight for a higher minimum wage, she accused him of a crime. That's violence, she wrote. So how do you protect yourself from violence? Well, you use armed guards, and she has. Last week, Ocasio-Cortez sat for an interview on the Middle East. At the age of 31, she is a much sought-after voice on every possible topic, from economics to the way society is designed to the details of complex foreign policy questions. During this interview, which was streamed online, she was asked, how do you bring peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis? Here's what she said.
You know, earlier just now, you and I were talking about the what and the how.
Yes.
And I think that when we talk about establishing peace, centering people's humanities, protecting people's rights, it's not just about the what and the end goal, which often gets a lot of focus. But I actually think it's much more about the how and the way that we are coming together and how we interpret that what and how we act in the actions that we take to get to that what. We value Jewish and rather we value Israeli. We value the safety and the human rights of Israelis. We value the safety and the human rights of Palestinians.
It went on like this. We could play the whole thing, but you get the idea. Centering people's humanity, protecting people's rights, blah, 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 blah. It was vapor. Now, if you were her mom or her college roommate or a close friend, you might give her a pass for what you just thought. It's pretty brave of her to weigh in on a subject she knows nothing about, you might think to yourself. That's the charitable view of that video. But if you were a sincere progressive and you were watching from home hoping to be led by a leader, you would be deeply disappointed by that performance. This is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, after all, lioness of the left. So where was her full-throated defense of the Palestinians, of their rights? Where was truth to power? That was Ryan Wentz's reaction. Wentz is a man of the left. He's an anti-war activist in California. He watched, and he wasn't impressed, and he said so. On Twitter, Wentz wrote this, quote, "Her response was incredibly underwhelming, to say the least," end quote. That's what he wrote. A week later, the police showed up at his house. 2 plainclothes officers from the California Highway Patrol arrived calling his name. They explained they'd been sent by the Capitol Police in Washington to respond to a threat against a sitting member of Congress. But Wentz hadn't threatened Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. He hadn't threatened anyone. He'd merely disapproved of her opinions. But the police seemed unconvinced. As he explained in an interview with the Gray Zone, quote, "They just wouldn't back down from this accusation that I threatened to kill her." But here's the spookiest part. Ryan Wentz hadn't included any personal information in his social media profile, and yet the police knew his name and they knew exactly where he lived. How did they find him? It seems likely that Twitter turned Ryan Wentz into authorities on behalf of their friend Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. It's hard to believe this is happening in America, but it is. The California Highway Patrol confirmed it today. The Capitol Police told us they referred Wentz's name because he was mentioned in a threatening message. They denied that Ocasio-Cortez requested an investigation. For her part, Ocasio-Cortez also denied direct involvement in any of it, but she didn't seem especially upset that it happened. She certainly didn't launch into an impassioned speech about civil liberties like a liberal might do, but then why would she do that? Threatening people for daring to criticize the powerful is normal now. And that's a trend that's accelerated dramatically since January 6th, the day the hunt for domestic extremists began. Even at the time, we noticed that no one was defining those terms very clearly. What exactly is an extremist? How is that different from someone who disagrees with the people in charge? Those people are domestic terrorists, we're told. They must be put down by force. The war on terror has moved stateside. Extremists have breached our walls. They are inside our country. And in response, we must hunt them down. None of these newly energized and highly empowered extremist hunters have told us exactly what an extremist is. So we're left to guess. We're left to look around nervously to see if we can spot one, hoping against hope the whole time they're not talking about us, are they? So what is an extremist? A lot of people assume that an extremist must be someone who voted for Donald Trump or who reads forbidden websites. No. It turns out an extremist is anyone who disagrees with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, from the right or from the left.